Echo's Box podcast is not meant to be or claiming to be a good place for therapeutic advice. The host is not a licensed therapist and is not offering any services or advice related to mental health in a professional manner. The content discussed on Echo's Box is commonly highly explicit due to the real nature of expressing honest emotions. While we don't mean to offend anyone, the reality is these discussions might be triggering to many people. Out of respect for all, please do not listen if this content isn't right for you, and forgive us if you have a poor experience. Keep your brain healthy. So we're starting this off a little weird. Normally we do our disclaimer and then go to an intro and then dive right in, right? This time we're going to have kind of like an intro to an intro to an intro. So that's because this is my first episode having a guest on. So I have my friend, the wonderful Luni Boo and her fiance Joe, and we just have a beautiful, beautiful conversation that I'm so excited for you to experience. And I hope you really enjoy it. With that though, there were a couple of audio things that come new with having more microphones and stuff like that. So I managed to EQ out a lot of stuff and get rid of a lot of weird bumps and noises and did my best to get rid of like some weird room noise. I think it came out pretty good, but now I know what to do a little bit better for next time. So that said, if you do notice some weird audio glitches and hiccups, don't worry, I'm aware of it. They literally could not be removed, but don't worry, nothing should shock you and scare you audibly. There was nothing that significant. Overall, it came out really good, and I'm super excited for it. In addition to that, we recorded this in my sanctuary space, which is where I think I'm going to have all my guests from now on, as long as they're like physically here, unless it's like a remote thing. The sanctuary space is where I do all of my ritual work, and there's a bunch of fun knickknacks in there and all kinds of stuff. Obviously, I do it throughout my house, but this is my primary space. But in addition to this being my primary space filled with all my stuff, I'm also holding some stuff for a mutual friend of mine and Looney's. And like I said, we get into a lot of shenanigans, and that includes pre and post recording. And Looney just left this friend a wonderful message, and she's somebody who we love very much, and I absolutely adore her. She's radiant, she's full of the best energy, and she's someone I believe truly deserves the best in life. So I wanted to leave that message in as just a general energy of positivity out there, and also for her. Of course, I'll send it to her on her own accord, but this is just someone who's so deserving, and I wanted to kind of lead us in with that, and then we'll dive in. So hopefully this is a message that you kind of feel some mutual love and respect and kindness for. And it's a great example of how I think others should treat their friends and their loved ones. So yeah, we're going to lead in with that and dive right into things. So thanks for listening.
Hey Tiff, if you happen to get this little clip, I hope you know that you're very beautiful, and everything that you own is energetically beautiful. I love you, girly. Mwah. Take care of yourself. Eat some food.
You're now listening to Heavy Like a Witch by All Them Witches. Go support them if you like this type of music. This song was picked by our guest today, so thank them for that. Hey everyone, welcome back to Echo's Box. This is episode 10 with Luni Boo. That's the title of the episode. That's what we're going with. We're going to have some cool music that she picked at the beginning. I'll add in a little bit about that once that's been selected, and we'll kind of go from there. But we're just going to dive right in. We've been talking for a couple hours now, just hanging out, and it kind of inspired me to just centralize a goal for what to talk about today. But we're going to go all over the place. But the big thing is, since I started introducing ceremonial magic as a topic into the podcast, I mentioned it's going to be more of a focal point because it really intertwines with my specific mental health problems and how it's benefited me in a lot of ways. And it's just really fundamental. And, you know, I preface kind of the reference to the book that'll be coming out hopefully soon. Fundamental magic. That's what it is. There's no dogma in it. There's no my personal work. It's just literally, here's the formulas, here's what they mean, here's what they do, and here's how they work, and you direct your own path from there. And so that's what really kind of got me out of a lot of ruts, and that's what keeps me growing. So we're going to kind of talk about how to get into that and then go from there. So without further ado, I introduce Luni Boo.
What's up?
What's up?
So I mean, like, where do we even start right now? Because you started off with a wonderful introduction. Can I just please do that real quick? Like, wow. Um, it is amazing to be here with you, and I've had a wonderful time just hanging out so far and just talking about everything that we have. And I'm sure you have a million ideas and questions ready to put out here for these people. Um, you know, I'm glad to be here right now because I'm excited to share not my personal experiences, but just overall experiences about my mental health, how magic has helped me with the path that I've gone down, things that trauma has helped me heal more than it has damaged me. It is honestly impeccable. And I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of you for being here doing what you're doing. I mean, you seem to be healthy, happy, and you're doing this wonderful podcast.
So, on that note of being kind of diving into the benefiting yourself and your mental health with magic,
Yeah.
how could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice? What do you kind of align with? Where are you kind of going? Where do you see yourself? You don't have to get too detailed, but whatever you want to share.
I mean, I would kind of consider myself a practitioner of all magic. I personally don't want to dive into any certain religion. I don't want to dive into set rules. There's a lot of people that are really set on you need to be Wiccan, you need to be pagan, you just need to be a witch, and it's not always down to that. It's always just about learning who you are, the power that you have within yourself, and what can you set for yourself and make that goal. And that itself is just magic. A lot of people don't take the time to understand that drinking water every day is just giving your body the nutrients, and that is working with the water element. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
They're always getting me, I swear. If you know, you know. There's a lot of people that talk about shower magic. Taking a shower can cleanse you, cleanse your aura, your physical body, help heal you. And it's all about affirmation, believing and speaking into it, and just thinking that you can create this positivity for yourself. And once you start believing it, you really start to feel better. You start to feel that glow. And I mean, yeah, once in a while, the blue moon comes, it's natural. Everybody gets these emotions, and especially with the way that the world is right now, you can't help but just get in that cycle of emotions. It's natural. We have to embrace it. We have to love it and just come to terms with it. And that, I love that. Working with myself, it's a powerful thing. It puts you on a path that only you can answer to. And it's not like you're terrified of the outcome, because the only person you're going to disappoint is yourself. And then you have to come back and go, well, damn, I hope, I'm not that mad at myself, because I love me. Or at least I hope you love me, or from your perspective as the guest, and you. But yeah.
That's something that I talk about very frequently with my experiences with major depressive disorder. It's very hard for me to love myself. I have to be purposefully kind to myself, show myself actions of love, because
as it can be,
but that's my tool right now to work towards breaking that, because I still can't feel it. But what's cool about magic is that's helping me work through that at the subconscious level, and working through like therapy stuff too. It's like realizing, oh, you weren't nurtured how you needed to be by your parents, or you didn't have. It's not because you didn't have love, or you didn't have even say have a good life. I mean, that's relative. I'm not talking about myself, but your mom could been the best.
Just
mom
hypothetical,
ever. Super loving.
It doesn't matter who the hell your parents are. It's who you are, and how you choose to grow up in your environment. And I mean, yeah, we most of us have had shitty environments. If you've grown up in between that millennial and Gen X generation, we've gone through this wave of technology, bullying one of another for our social appearances, how we communicate. It's torture out here, and I can't blame people for feeling the way that they do. I feel the way that I feel some ways, and I just can't describe it some days. But that's okay. You know, you're allowed to feel that way. As for anybody else that's listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, because your emotions are abstract and they're valid. If you feel it, you feel it. Now, you may want to step back and be like, why do I feel this to make sure
acknowledge.
it's not hurting you? But, feel it. Cry. Laugh. Like, do the emotion. And with people who have that kind of mental illness blockage, there are some emotions that you can't process. You'll know when you do because you've had practice experiencing those other emotions that you can feel. You know what that's like. So as soon as that happens for you, as long as you continue to work on yourself, the whole goal is to get there. I can't promise you will because I'm not there. How the fuck would I know?
Yeah, but, I mean, but everybody's their own person. That's the goal.
That's what I'm shooting for, and that's what I want everybody else to shoot for.
Understandable. I mean, everybody's their own person, you know, and hell, do whatever the fuck you want to do because the only person that's going to be mad or happy is you. Mm-hmm. You make your money. You live on your own. You know, if you happen to be underage and you're listening to this, take the time while you can to be a kid and enjoy it because it sucks being an adult, okay? And for those adults that are listening to this, you know, take the time to love yourself. Go take a walk, rent a bike, do something. Do something that will get you off your phone, off your games, out of the house. Just enjoy nature for what it is, and you'll already be partaking in just magic and helping yourself.
I didn't even think I was going to bring this up, but you prompted a really terrifying thing in a good way, a very positively terrifying thing that I'm hopefully going to start and will hopefully be of a huge benefit. And I'm scared to it because I'm scared to death. But the idea is I saw it somewhere on one of the various social media sites that exist. Take a pick. There's a lot of ads that come through, but this ad was what I wanted to see. Yeah. And it was for a book, it was some quotes from a therapist's book, and she was talking about methods to practically love yourself. And they got into a topic in that is romance yourself, date you. Go date yourself. And I love other people to death. Like I love being romantic with people. I love giving
wonderful.
All that in. But why have I never done that to myself? Why do I give that away to everybody else?
You might feel guilty. And I know that sounds silly, but you might feel guilty and selfish because you get to spend this money on watching somebody else smile, but it's not like you have a mirror standing there watching yourself smile.
Exactly.
So you feel like you're not really expressing or feeling that emotion, but in reality you are.
Yeah.
And you just have to stand back. And I mean, you know, even if that's just taking a second to just understand, hey, you know, I'm okay to be alone. And I'm having a wonderful time outside in this little fucking breeze, chilling by myself, drinking a fucking drink on the fucking beach, whatever you decide to do. You know what I mean? Like, hypothetically, I'm running with ideas. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you want to introduce?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. So I had brought my boyfriend, actually my fiance. We've been talking about getting engaged for the past 3 months, and it's, you know, I'm terrified of divorcing, you know. It is hectic. I'm terrified of being divorced. So I want to push back that date as long as possible. So that way I know it's certain. I know it's terrible, but but this is Joe, and I'm going to invite him to the cast.
On the topic of selfishness and emotions, there are a lot of our generation that have grown up with the mental construct of selfishness is bad and emotions are weak. And I believe that is a foolish
mindset, way of thinking.
Yeah, it's a foolish mindset and way of thinking because it limits yourself and how you can go to day-to-day life.
Yeah, I especially the first part of what you said there really resonated with me immediately because that's exactly why I'm in the state I'm in. And it is very foolish because the whole beauty of life is when you're able to control how you respond to life. You can choose to be happy, and when it's time to be sad, you can choose to be sad. But to the romancing yourself point, one of the things that they recommend trying, it's so cheesy, but that's why I love it. Write love notes to yourself. Think about how you felt about your crush in high school for the first time, and write sweet little notes to yourself.
You know, I used to do like little love doodles, and I know that sounds like a little crazy and like fangirly, but I used to do these like little love doodles, and looking back on it, they're sigils, obviously, to me now. But I was doing these like little love doodles, and like it was just like, it made me so happy and made me feel good. And I continue to still do them to this day without even genuinely recognizing until saying it right now, honestly. And it's mind baffling at the little things that we do and we don't take for appreciation for ourselves, like brushing our teeth every morning. Mm-hmm. You could be looking in the mirror and just admiring how beautiful your eyes are, whether they're brown, blue, hazel. I mean, every eye is gorgeous, and nobody else is you, you know, and you gotta love that. Mm-hmm. It's important, and I'm glad that you had brought that up, because it's a very big key on acceptance.
It's a huge key on growth, because that's something, because of the mental blockage I have, that I am fighting the hardest, because everything else kind of comes naturally if I put in the work. I still have to put in the work, but there's nothing blocking me chemically. So it's like, all right, well, let's work through that, because you know how to process everything else. And so, like, doing these kind of activities, like thinking about to how you treat others in positive ways, and just doing that for yourself. And I hope that works really well, and I'm excited to try to start writing those little cheesy notes to myself. So see if it makes me smile in the morning, see if it makes me feel more loved. I'm super stoked for that.
If you're forgetful enough with the with your day-to-day life, the love notes would be like coming from someone else.
Yeah,
you just hide them from yourself, put them in your jean pocket. You'll forget about it a week later.
I mean, yeah, it's a good idea, though. You know, there's a lot of forgetful minds out there, and I'm one of them, honestly, because I can't tell you how many crystals I've found in my dryer. It's ridiculous. I'm so sorry for them, but yikes. But yeah, what else you got?
So let's kind of dive into magic. So I'll kick us off so you can kind of get a vibe for where we're going. But I'm going to kind of talk about, I'm not going to go into my whole fucking life story, because that's not what we're here for. Nobody wants that. But I do kind of want to start at the pinnacle of when I started diving into ceremonial magic, and I'll touch on a little background as well. Okay. So from the get-go, especially just talking to the listeners of the podcast, like, I knew I wanted this to be not only mental health, but philosophy, theology, and obviously esotericism, ceremonial magic. Would throw all the stuff's cool. Yeah. If it's weird, it's cool. Bring it my way. Like, I'll interview musicians.
Hey, I'm down. Bring me in.
Because the whole thing is shared experiences. It doesn't really have to matter too much what the focus is. But those are, you know, some of my passions. And as a result of that, it's very important to kind of talk about a slight bit of entry to where I got, because I didn't just, I found a book on magic, I'm a wizard now. That's not how that fucking worked. It was very difficult.
It does not work like that, ladies and gentlemen. Please take notes. It is hard work, and I am proud of you for getting where you are, because you know I've been working. I'm not a book nerd personally, and your little library just amazes me. I don't know how you hold so much knowledge in your mind. It's mind-baffling.
I can tell you how to do it. It's a cheat code.
Oh, God. You've hacked the Matrix?
Yeah, I've hacked the Matrix.
Oh, Lord.
No, it's literally just because when you don't sleep and your brain is able to multitask, you retain a lot of stuff. But at the same time, the actual cheat code this is how I got good at, like, my professional courses. This is just a good general tip. So listeners who know that my career, I do hacking, I do a lot of technical stuff, computer science. The fuck I know every single line of fucking code. That shit's, it's hard. Nobody fucking knows that. I'm a senior. Like, if you're an entry-level person right now feeling like, oh, this is overwhelming. Yeah, it is. It stays that way. So what you have to learn to do is understand the fundamental concept of what is going on, and be able to just look it up because it's documented somewhere. Because you think the guys who made it know it? No, we're all the same. That's how we ended up here. We're all lost together. But
I feel that, though. I mean, I get it. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to find with what you want when you don't have necessary resources or the guidance to take you where you want. And it's good that you've been able to find those sources and the guidance that you've now have the access to, because you're not only providing for your spirituality, but you're providing for your physical and mental health. And it's important.
Yeah, and the whole thing with, like, the books and retention, it's like, that's the cheat codes. I don't really retain. I retain the formula. I retain the fundamental, and I maintain the location. So, and I do memorize things that I'm actively doing. So, like, right now I mean, I've done it. This is my daily now. I can
genetically natural.
Yeah, I can stand up right here and then immediately start doing the fucking lesser banishing ritual hexagram, cobblest across.
Oh, Lord.
invoking reverse again over and over and over
Yeah.
again 50 million times. I've got all the angels members, and it's not a lot. But if you just started it was hard for me to remember.
If you just started, then yeah, it's a lot.
Like,
I mean, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of beginners that talk about deities and about how it's scary. And then once you're to that point, you're like, well, damn, why was everybody tripping, you know?
It's because you had to build to get
You
there.
have to work your way up. And if you're not to that level, or not necessarily like level like a video game, but if you're not up to that frequency level and able to connect with yourself, then you're not fully going to be able to connect with anything else. And that is a really important thing, because if not, you could be hurting yourself physically and mentally. And it's just draining and exhausting, and it definitely doesn't help on anything with your mentality, especially if it's already, you know, laying on the ground and can't get up. Mm-hmm. Metaphorically speaking, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the fundamentals really are just so important, because you can't possibly know where to go if you don't know where to start.
That rule, those steps. Yeah.
You have to have an understanding of where to focus and exert your energy. And if you don't have the fundamentals down, you're just going to be exerting your energy for nothing. It's just going to not necessarily backfire or do anything harmful to you, but you will get tired and it will just exert yourself.
Yeah, rather than growing.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that, yeah.
So the book I recently posted in the Facebook group was The Magus, and I was so glad I found that. And because of my beginning to practice this whole physically romancing myself type of thing therapeutically, one of my rules I have is anytime I go to buy something on Amazon, I have to buy a book.
Okay.
Otherwise, if I can't afford both.
I like that.
If I can't afford both and it's not a thing I need, like dog food or something.
I like that.
Then
I
don't buy
might
it.
steal that rule, though, now. Because, you know, I've been hesitating on buying books, buying things that I need for my growth. And I've been kind of lacking right now in my spirituality, because I'm focusing more on my physical and mental health, and that is okay, you know.
Absolutely.
Especially during this Mercury retrograde. Okay, if this comes out, you know, around the time that it's still going on, hope you're fine.
Yeah. Everybody on the podcast knows how mine's been going.
I mean, it's understandable though. It's hella relatable.
Yeah.
I can't even get into that right now, honestly. But I definitely agree with that, and it's important to understand your fundamentals, your steps, where your limitations are, and it's not about what other people's limitations are, because they're always going to be different. There's always going to be people that are going to continuously push their limits and push yours, and you got to learn to put up boundaries. It's important, hella important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So going off of fundamentals, kind of where I got started with all this was I grew up actually nothing, pretty much like pseudo-Christian agnostic. Like my family was just a good old Southern family. It was like pray to God, pray to Jesus, but they didn't actually read the Bible or go to church. Like they were those kinds.
Understandable.
And but my grandma would have me read the Bible as a child, and it was just for literary, and that's how I got good at reading and writing. But that was hard. It was hard as shit. It was the King James version. I was 5. Like I can barely read words. What do you want from me? But it was that's kind of where I got spiritual roots, and over time that's how the family just became generally spiritual. They just kind of reference God and Jesus because that's acceptable by where we live.
I mean, I understand that. I respect all of my Christian friends, my family. Like my great grandmother, she is a sister of a South Baptist church, and she has been clarified legally blind. So she hasn't been able to go to church for like the past 7-8 years, but they still call her every Sunday, put her on speaker, and just let her pray to whoever and wherever. She believes wholeheartedly that God has given her the hands to send out prayers and to heal and to provide with whatever. And she, kid me not, she told me that she could feel when God is touching her and he is in her presence, and it's like she can see a man, but it's not like it's a man. And I kind of feel like, you know, she just might be clairvoyant, but we're perceiving it as in a different way because, you know, I'm not technically Christian, but I still want to believe in her faith. So
I love that you told that story because that bleeds excellently into to how I grew.
Understandable. My grandmother, not my grandmother, but my mother, she raised me as an atheist. I grew up with no religion. I didn't grow up with church. I didn't grow up with thinking about God, honestly, unless it was at my great-grandmother's house, which was like maybe once a month. I mean, hypothetically, I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but every time that it would pop up, it was just kind of like my mom was in the back of my head telling me I shouldn't do these things. And, I kind of regret not searching into it at a younger age, because I feel like I could have helped myself with everything that had happened down the road. But at the same time, there was a reason why things had happened down the road. And there's a reason why I'm learning things now, because I didn't learn those things then. It just all comes back into place. If you don't learn it then, it'll come back around.
Yeah, and that, on the note of the kind of like where I'm describing the whole learning to love yourself process, yes, part of that is like a mental thing, but it's also people don't necessarily lack that just for a chemical reason. For all I know, that's going to work great for me. Yeah. So that's why it's so worth trying.
I mean, it's probably out there right now, manifesting for you, and it's just you're waiting to be claimed for it. But hypothetically speaking, you don't really know. It's just all about your affirmation and what you're saying and how you're believing it and where your energy is going.
Yeah, you're teaching and this is the way my therapist kind of describes it, is it's on a practical sense, you are teaching yourselves the things that you didn't experience before. So it's okay that you didn't experience.
You're allowed to learn them. You're allowed to father and mother yourself. And I mean, hell, I'm doing it. Yeah. So why can't anybody else? And it's an important part to grow for yourself. It shapes you outside of the people that raised you to who you are. You get to finally experience life as a free bird, or hypothetically speaking, I'm not a fucking bird. Caw. But you get to sit down and experience things, and you get to pick and choose with what you want to do with your life. You can't sit here and let other people direct you forever, because are you really living? No, not at all. Live you. Absolutely. And it's just miserable living like that. It's time to start picking.
But so as I would kind of go through that throughout high school and stuff, I went to like the youth group, because I had a group of friends that were accepting, and that was a safe place to go, and it was good. And I kind of fell into the whole Southern Baptist dogma for a while, and if you want a cheat code to get really good at theology really quick,
join a church.
No, be an asshole youth kid at a Baptist church, and then stick with all the other weird assholes. And then as you grow into a mature adult and become emotionally aware of yourself and stop being an asshole, you connect with some actual cool people who really know theology, and they teach you stuff. That's the cheat code. So I got to learn really young. And
don't beat yourself up for any of that, though. Seriously,
no, we're all assholes in high school.
I mean, honestly, we all got one. Hey.
Used it earlier, but
that's what I'm talking about.
So I went from that, and a lot of my kind of foundation for ceremonial magic, the reason I connected to that so much was because of the background I had, and the things map one to one
with like saints and stuff.
Not even.
I mean, like it's just like it's the first thing that pops into my head, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's like the first thing that pops into my head is thinking of like Saint Michelangelo or like God, I can't even remember his name. It starts with an A.
Augustine.
Okay, and he's got like a little round cap in like the pictures. I can't think of his actual figuration, but like mythology wise, he has like almost like a horseshoe hair.
Right.
I don't mean to make fun of him. I'm sure he'd hear this and be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So that'll be another topic for another day. I'll talk about what saints actually are in deeper context with the Kabbalah.
Definitely not for today.
That is not.
It's my fault.
But it's really. But what you're saying is exactly right. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the imagery mapped, and my favorite teacher, I cannot get enough of Damien Eccles. He when I was watching him describe it on the Midnight Gospel, he he said,
I love Duncan Trussell.
"Oh God, Duncan Trussell, please come on the podcast."
Please, Duncan Trussell, if you hear this,
You're the only one I actually kind of know how to contact. I know you don't know me, and that sounds really creepy, but trust me, it's legitimate.
Look, I don't know how to contact you, Duncan Trussell, but I will telepathically get on your level.
That's more dangerous than me.
Maybe, I don't know. I think he'd be like a cool free bird, you know, like just chilling.
Duncan Trussell is a beautiful being.
I believe it.
Marry me.
Come onto the podcast.
But what he was talking about in that episode was basically how you have Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism and all that kind of stuff, and their imagery. And when you're a person that's born in those regions, and that's what you're used to the monkey's signs, you're used to the elephants, you're used to all the representation and symbolism that they use in Eastern culture.
Yeah.
What ceremonial magic did over time, over the years, it was founded in a lot of the Kabbalah and then branched out to like other subjects of magic and became what it is. But when it was first in its infancy, it was pulling from ancient Sumer, Egypt, and what later became the Christian practices based on all that. And when that all happened, it's like, oh, we develop Eastern iconography because now we're going to the East.
See, now, I don't mean to interrupt you again, but for a while now, I had thought that ceremonial magic had gained a lot of its roots from like Aztecs, Greek, and like a lot of polytheism. Excuse my terrible wording. I don't know how to pronounce it.
The P word.
Polytheism. Polytheism. Oh well, who gives a shit? But I feel like it was just taking out a good roots of like everything that it felt comfortable with, everything that just kind of like universally fit with everything that just simply connected, like it does with runes from Egyptian lettering. You know, it just kind of like so happily connects with their symbolisms into the rune shapes. You know what I mean? Like I can't think of the ones off the top of my head, but I'm sure you would know. But yeah,
and there are because over time, of course, magicians add in their own additional information, and that's actually beneficial in a lot of ways.
It's been a long time since people have started this off, and now here we are in 2022. It's New Age modern paganism. I don't even know what this.
We have witch talk now.
Like, what is happening? I'm crazy. I used to look at these like weird vampire witch girls on Tumblr at like 12, 13, and used to envy them, and now it's like a witch talk thing, and it's like, yo, when this trend hit back, and I didn't know we were replaying for a while. I swear.
Everybody just jumped back into the scene era.
A little bit.
I'm not too upset about it. But.
I mean, me neither. I can't lie. I'm rocking this hair.
This is how I grew up to begin with. But what you're saying is right, because a lot of magicians over time would interject their own experiences, and there's benefit to that, but there's also danger. And the danger is that if they add too much to the formula that was just for themselves, just for their path,
like greediness.
It could be anything like that, but greediness would be a very detrimental one, right? So they construct a ritual for wealth, and it was for their own personal goal of wealth and greed. Maybe that's good for them in their path, who knows? Yeah. But if you do that, and that's not for you, you're gonna get fucked up with it. It's
understandable.
Not good. And that's why Crowley is so hard to read, for example, because he interjects a lot of his own stuff. But what's nice is he does provide the whole formula. You just have to uncover his gobbledygook, throw it out to the side for a second. Then you can, once you understand the form, you can bring back in his context, and you can decide. You can actually make a logical decision. Hey, was that just his path, or was that actually like part of this that he had a revelation on?
Understandable.
That goes along with the a lot of the old artists from back then that were like Crowley. A lot of their words have to be deciphered to find what you're looking for. So it's made that you have to read the whole book and go back on it multiple times.
H.P. Lovecraft. He did a lot of stuff on Cthulhu.
Yes.
And there's like a whole entire cult right now for just Cthulhu. And I have a buddy of mine, no names named right now because I don't know, But whoa.
You didn't hear that.
there's a whole cult for like Cthulhu, and it's immaculate because there's people out here that are going off words off of a book that was created like 50 fucking years ago by some man that was probably coked the fuck up. Yeah. No offense, but you know what I mean? Like I've sat down and I've read a whole bunch of Crowley books, and a lot of it just kind of like, what in the world am I doing? And as a solitary practitioner, it's confusing, it's misleading, and it's dangerous. It is terribly dangerous because you could be trying to connect with something out of one of these books thinking, it's going to be kind, it's going to be nice, it's going to give me the love that I need, etc., and then you're screwed. Right. And then you have nothing that you can do. And that's another point to the fundamentals, is learning those steps on who you are, what you're doing, what your voice is, and what's going on, because it's just, those fundamentals are so important.
I'm so happy that the modern writers for a lot of the books, that the good books
can actually sit down and discover these things and break them down
in the break. Exactly. Yes. So that's why I always say, and this is because this is also the only path I know, but it just seems logical that if you are going off of not your just like, if you're a book person, like kind of like we're talking about, if you're not, you can just go off your vibes and figure it out. I can't really help you because I am a book person. But
hey, I'm right here and I'm all vibes. Like I go off vibes and I try to fluctuate between what's what, and I ask questions, I sit down and I learn, I meditate wherever the fuck I am. I don't give a shit where I am. I'll sit down in the middle of Walmart if I need to, if I feel a bad vibe, and I'll try to figure it out. But I mean, if I can't, then I'm gonna try to move on and protect myself, because it's important. There's boundaries that need to be set down and lied.
Yeah, those are the fundamentals of it.
Absolutely. Again, fundamentals. I feel like that's gonna be a main topic on this, is fundamentals.
Well, we're talking about kind of origins, so in a way, it has to.
Absolutely. But I mean, it's just, I think overall, I don't know, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so it's like a lot. That's why I'm super happy about the modern writers, because they do break it down the way they do. And what's nice is once you have those fundamentals, now you can go recroll. Yeah, because you're gonna already be confident in your practice. Because you've experienced what worked
and what you're doing.
And
you have your no offense to Michael Ford, but it's the same way with him. Yeah. He is a dark practitioner, and a lot of people would consider it dark magic, black magic, etc., whatever you're comfortable with. But to me, it is just a form of magic. And you have to be not specifically trained or taught how to do things, but just to get those fundamentals down, be able to learn the knowledge that you need, and continue on your practice and take what you want, not necessarily want, but out of the respect, kindness, and do what you will without causing as much harm as possible, fucking up the universe. There's people out there throwing all kinds of negative and ill will intentions, and not truly understanding where they're throwing it at, where is it going in the end, and where is it going to go in the long run. There's always got to be the beginning, middle, and end.
Well, it's the scariest thing about that, and not in like a really profound way or anything, but it's that most people are doing that because everybody does magic, whether they are or not. So in a way it balances out, because there are enough people that are good human beings that are. Everybody does magic just by interacting with the world day to day, so they're putting out good energy just tangentially off to the
Understandable.
Side. But the majority, I would see, based on how things are playing out, of course I have no fact in this, does seem a lot more negative, because whether they are intentionally doing it or not, they're doing it.
Well, I mean, I kind of have to blame social media on this, and I kind of have to blame a lot of our, not political faces, but our corporate and high fancy,
the influencing bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. The influencing bodies of how they present themselves, how they're showing the world on what they're doing, and trying to just make a quick buck now. Yeah. That's mostly what it is making a quick buck. It's not sitting down and actually connecting with one another. And I mean, right now it's kind of like in that middle phase of where you have those millennials that are trying to, those psychonauts, honestly, that huge wave of psychonauts are coming out, And they're talking about these experiences with love and light, and not everything is just magic, but there is love out there. There is something better than just feeling sorry for yourself. And there's a point to feeling sorry for yourself and feeling like you're allowed to feel that way. But at a point, you also have to go, I'm fucking done. Yeah. I need to feel good, and I need to be proud of who I am and what I'm doing.
It almost feels like a maturing, or even possibly mature, because
we're opening up.
Like,
I'm sure Joe Rogan would agree.
But it's that to reflect like what we had in the 70s and 80s, but that didn't make it. But this feels a lot more refined.
Well, I mean, the 70s and 80s had a whole bunch of more shit going on. Yeah. You know, they had racial issues going on. They had political issues going on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you had a whole bunch of, well, right now we have a whole bunch of war going on in the midst of all of this eye openings. And you know, the government had actually recently, like a year or two ago, had released a astral projection manual.
That's what CIA studies.
Yes.
Yeah. It was blacked out documents that they had to release because, you know, you can only keep things private so long. So they released a whole bunch of documents talking about the MK Ultra and the Harvard studies.
Yep.
But, I mean, like, that just kind of brings up to my mind of, you know, that was made back in the 60s, and now it's being released for us to sit down and acknowledge and discover. But is it a trickery? That's the biggest question between these millennials is it a trickery or is it honesty? And I think that's where I kind of draw a line, because to a point it can be trickery, but it is honesty. There is a world out there. We just have to be able to access it and understand what's our mind and what's not.
Yeah.
Because our mind is a bigger thing than we can actually comprehend.
The fact that we can create even just by thinking.
Absolutely.
That's the minimal.
There was a lot of stuff, like she was talking about the trickery between the, you know, them letting out fake documents. I hear a lot of people say that those documents were released or were being tested on so that the spies being sent over from Russia during the time would be misled and start researching and wasting time into things that, you know, were useless to the government at that point.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter which way you kind of view the conspiracy, because on one side, either we were actually doing it and that's the result, or on the other side, their trickery worked and impacted somebody in another nation.
Yeah.
So it happened either way.
I mean,
you can kind of bet at least, even if it's 1% of people.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it's happening.
I do believe that. I do believe that, you know, we did do the studies, but I don't think that, you know,
actually using it for
actually using it.
I mean, okay, not to bring up Joe Rogan in another podcast right now, but
hey, Joe.
Hey,
I'll talk to you too.
But he was talking to a guest one time, and I was sitting there watching it, you know, just listening to it, and he was talking about how there's these CIA documents about them getting psychics and mediums in like the 60s and 70s, and just talking about discovering everybody's mentality, trying to find who has a harmful mindset. And then they went out and tried to find them, hunt them down, and they did. They found a whole bunch of people and started questioning them, and they were like, well, what the fuck? How do you even know this? And da-da-da-da-da-da. And they never even bothered to discover it until this dude on Joe Rogan's podcast just started talking about it. And I was like, what the fuck? You sat here and went through all of these documents to discover that they had secret mediums and psychics in the fucking government trying to hack into people's astral place, or like frequency brainwaves. And it's scary because we're not technically allowed to be free, even spiritually, unless you're fighting for it. And once you're done fighting for it and you're continuously pushing on that little barrier, that bubble, whatever you decide to call it, you know, your personal space, you get to understand and open up and see so much bullshit that is around you and harmful to you, stuff that makes you so toxic you don't even realize. And then, you know, it's like waking up. A lot of people call it the Matrix. I mean, some people just say it's crazy. It's just magic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole goal of a lot of art. I say this with very deep respect for the specifics to a given path, but in general, it's all enlightenment. So like whether you're a Christian being saved, whether you're a Buddhist praying into enlightenment, whether you're a ceremonial magician working on the great work, or a Thelemite doing what thou wilt, does not matter. You're Wiccan going on your natural magic path and and dealing with the divine feminine masculine and making all that peace. It doesn't matter. They all reach enlightenment. That's the end state. The end state, once everybody gets there, is experiencing ultimately the same thing. Path doesn't really matter. It's what your path is.
That's who you are.
Back to like it goes back towards the social media standpoint about the self-love and whatnot. There isn't any anymore, and it goes along the point of why create an atmosphere where they would enlighten their people when enlightenment means that they would wake up to the bullshit of the world. So keep us in a cycle of self-hate and self-projection on everyone around us, so we don't focus on the bigger picture of, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing these cycles that they're forcing us to do through this stuff.
Oh, okay. So that's perfect. I'm gonna take us back to kind of the upbringing with that, because what I love about what you just said is that the whole concept of it being like negated against is how we lost. It's how we get the word esotericism. It's because the practices over, because this happened. We have record of this in history, and now it's just harder to tell. The lies look like truths now. But looking back 2020, even now, even if we look back from the present in 50 years and we see what's going on now, we'll know because it's hindsight. But that's the only reason we know what was happening then.
I mean, we do that with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's just a thing. But for example, a lot of ceremonial magic practices, like I said, they go all the way back to ancient Sumer. But who was carrying that esoteric knowledge? It was the church. It was the Christian church. Yeah. The Bible is one of the greatest books of magic, and so. But you have to.
The burning bush that talks to the man about the revolution of life. Like, what the fuck? That's not magic. Okay, buddy.
You think
all right.
Jesus was not doing fucking the middle pillar out in the middle of the desert? That he made it up. I don't have.
Okay,
that's bullshit,
isn't it a little sketchy that the three wasn't it like three women or like three nuns going out to like the hole that he was encaved in, and then he just like somehow wasn't there and was resurrected? Yeah, it was three women, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was. Oh, shoot. I can't remember who went to check finally, but it wasn't.
I understand. I thought I could remember, like, as a child going over that.
Who wrote it was there. I do think it was.
Yeah, I just remember reading as a child three women finding Jesus or not being able to find Jesus, and they were like, "Well, where is he?" Da 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 da, and everybody kind of like freaking out because
that's when they came back. Okay,
yes. Looking back at it, it kind of reminds me of Hecate, and I don't mean to bring her up in this podcast, but. Isn't that amazing that it's somehow, some way, you're just bringing in three maidens that have nothing to do with this story, that just happen to know where the fuck Jesus is buried and his body's at? That doesn't make any sense, Like, even if, like, they were fellow Christian women, how are they even Christian women? It wasn't even a thing then. So
Judaism wasn't a thing?
Exactly. Like, what were these women just doing? That's sketchy. Obviously, it's like some divided being that probably granted Jesus back here. Or I probably fucked up his name, but oh well.
That dude.
I don't mean to, offend. I don't mean to offend anybody that's listening to this. If I'm messing it up, excuse me. But it's just not my path, and I'm going to sit down and listen to anybody that's going to try to teach me it, but I'm not going to go down and sit down, read it myself, honestly. And I don't mean any,
And honestly, I say it's one of the greatest books of magic, but that's important as just more of a joking anecdote. It's valid because there is a lot to gain. That's why bibliomancy is even a divination practice to begin with. It was founded in that concept with the Bible and the Word. But the whole idea of what you observe as reading the text from dogma perspective versus historical data puts a big perspective. So what a lot of people read the Bible as now is very dogma based, and you get good theology out of that a lot of times, but you also develop a faith, which is fine. You can do whatever you want with that, but what you're not getting is what's the story that's actually being written. You're not getting
faith is with everything, you know. You can take faith with anything. There's people that have faith in Vikings and they weren't gods, you know. It's just what people do.
Exactly.
With the with that whole topic, back in those days, I mean, who's to tell that magic wasn't more plentiful?
Yeah.
Like, the world was more pure then. There wasn't as many people. There wasn't as many things destroying nature. Life was at a standstill of balance for a minute. And that's when, you know, the characters of Jesus and, you know, the maidens came in. Who's to say that, you know, Jesus walked on water, turned water into wine? If, you know, magic was more plentiful back then, you could use magic and those abilities. It's just not everyone was capable of it. There were higher beings there.
Even if you take it completely literally, the infinite possibility of it, and not actually having, like, we only know what we experience now, and so whether you take it as a metaphor, whether you take it literally, there's still a power that's being there's something being represented there that is 1,000% valid.
Well, I mean, like, I kind of have a theory on this. Now imagine if we were, you know, psychically open, etc., and like it was just natural to us, you know, people, mediums and shit like that. Back in the decades, you would already naturally just kind of be psychically open because you don't have this technology. You have, you have no barrier that is blocking your mental state from growing and going from where it needs to go, especially your imagination, because that's all you have out there. It's just the woods, you know, whatever you decide to build, and that is important. That was important. It is important, you know. It's just everything that you do back in those age, it's already magic because you're coming up with these creations and ideas that nobody else has fucking invented. So already you're just creating a little bit of life that has just been sustaining for God knows how long, you know. So, I mean, that's how I feel about that.
Back in those days, you also got to think, you know, how many schizophrenic people there were because, I mean, not even that. It's just like the lack of light. You got to think how expensive candles were back then, so on and so forth. The only light sources were fire, and there weren't many fires back then. So you got to think just people with abundance magic everywhere sitting in the dark. Imagine how many things you would see. And imagine how many things would move on.
You can do whatever you want with
exactly. Imagine how many things you could communicate with and how many things that you could apply your energy and your gifts to.
I get where you're coming from. You have a good point on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of where all that comes from, like talking about the Bible and even that historical context, that's how we got things like Jewish mysticism, and that's how we get the basic, the fundamentals of ceremonial magic, and it explodes from there. But that's why you start there, and that it can be very off-putting, especially if you've never experienced Christianity. But what's nice about it is that in the West, at least, it's very off-putting. I find when I talk to people in Eastern traditions, not because they don't like ceremonial magic, but they don't like the references. They kind of feel like it's like, well, my thing is working better for me, and that's valid. That they're absolutely 1,000% correct on that. But it works really well for Westerners. It would be really easy for me, and it still is, and this is why I love engaging still in the Christian community where I can, is not to, I don't want to give a fuck about what your dogma is. I don't care about what your beliefs are. I want to talk about what you think this symbology means, because that's what's important in my practice. Like, I'm not there. I was that. I don't need to dissect your religion anymore. That's yours. It's fine. I love it. Yeah. Jesus is great. I love Jesus. But
he's a good guy. Down at heart, he's a good guy. He's just been screwed over, you know. And he's no offense to him, but he doesn't provide me with what I need, and not everybody is for everybody, and that's okay.
No, I use Christ consciousness very frequently in rituals, and that's kind of it now. But but
I mean, they're people too, you know. We gotta love them.
Yeah, and but the I love those conversations about the iconography though, because that's where a lot of the ceremonial magic stuff came from, and that's where kind of over time why it became esotericism was like the Catholic Church. They're doing fucking pentagram rituals all the goddamn time. That's where we got it.
Yeah.
The Satanists took it and flipped it upside down, and now it kind of just means what they want it to mean. It's fine. That's valid too. They created it.
Yeah.
They created the shit. It works.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we got that from that, and they just kind of said, oh, this is making people too aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then shifted it to a more actual religion, not
Understandable.
a awakening practice. But because of the real
Trying
path
to
of Christianity,
trying to close it back down to keep that faith going.
Yeah, the real path is still enlightenment. It doesn't work for everybody, but for those that it's for,
okay,
that's how it is.
Hypothetically, do you think that there could be a trickster of Jesus for the non-believers inside of the Christian community that is providing this false and fake hope, you know, leading them down a down path? And I know that sounds like a little crazy, but like every deity has one, and why wouldn't Jesus would? You know, I mean, he's just as good as anybody else, right?
Yeah.
He's had so much years, so much centuries of manifestation and energy transmuted to him just as a please accept me.
Yeah.
You know, and that itself is amazing, but what if it could be harming people that have no idea what true light is?
I think you just answered your own question, and that's because that's for the idea of egregorical entities come into play. Jesus is a little bit on the teetering fence between practices. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But
he's just kind of like, yo, man, what's up?
It
Let's
doesn't
vibe.
really matter because what you said is still true, regardless if it's an egregorical thing or an over time thing. It's somebody is putting enough energy to it over thousands of years, and yeah, you're damn right. Another group is putting energy into the opposite. 1,000%. That has to exist. Yeah. And we know it exists because we have specific groups that are explicitly anti. Even if it's it's not just 10 people, it's millions of people. They're putting that same energy. So yes, there's definitely some kind of energy that exists that is that.
It'd be in the same perspective of like the Cthulhu cult as the Jesus. You know, it's. And as the Satanists, you know, they created their own belief. They created their own thing to look forward to.
It's not even the Satan of what's taught by
Judaism,
but it's still Satan.
It's
still a valid entity.
Yeah.
It's the same concept of believing in what you believe in, and that's where you find your power. You find your fundamentals, and then you find what calls to you, and you put your energy into that, and that's what makes it powerful.
Exactly.
I agree with that one 100% because, like, it's important.
Hell, you could believe that toast makes you the happiest man alive, and if you believe it strong enough, it probably would.
I wish I could do that.
Toast with butter and then some jam on it.
If that's all I could think about for the rest of my life, I think it'd be pretty chill.
If you're listening to this, please comment how you like your toast.
I like mine burnt, and then I
Lord.
peel the dark crust off.
I was always just really drawn to that symbolism though, and then when I learned about Damien Eccles through Duncan Truckle, hey Duncan Truckle, through his podcast, I was like, okay, let me see what this shit's about because I have a foundation in this, and I have a very strong foundation in this, and I'd already deconstructed all of my religion. I wasn't religious, but I was still kind of spiritual, and I was like, okay, let's start here. And it was like, you're gonna meditate for at least a year, and I meditated for several years before I did a lick of actual magic. I read ahead.
Understandable.
But I didn't do anything. I did exactly as I was told because I was depressed and I needed an answer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try everything. We're staying alive. We're getting through this. This is how we're going to go. And the meditation is important. I'm glad I did it for so long because that now I can hop into that state whenever to do rituals. It's very beneficial for that.
I mean, it's understandable. I mean, I do not condone in the usage of any type of drugs, hallucinogenics, etc.
We've had a drug episode.
You know, I have listened to it, but I still, have to say that as a disclaimer before I say this, because it is important. There is a lot of people that condone in the misusage of a lot of drugs, and it damages not your mentality, but your physical body as well. And there's not a lot of people talking about that. There's not a lot of people talking about the lack of appetite and hydration and everything else that goes behind it. It's terrible. But I had started off doing psychedelics. I started off macro dosing Wrong way to go. Do not suggest it. But if you do happen to try this, start off light and easy. Don't use Pink Floyd. Just try to sit down and meditate, and try to not focus on silence, but to allow yourself to allow those thoughts to come, accept them, and allow them to walk away when they're ready, instead of holding on to them and harassing it, because it's only going to increase and get worse at that point. And I don't know, man. It's just, I think it's important to anybody that is listening to this and anybody in this room that when you're using hallucinogenics or psychedelics, drugs to help you with your magic, your mental health, stay hydrated. Don't worry about feeling ashamed or disappointed in what you're doing. Use it with an intention of doing something better, something to motivate you after this. This is a treat for yourself for doing so good all week. There's no problem with that. I'll smoke a little blizzy every weekend, you know what I mean? Just because I kept my damn mouth shut and I was a good girl. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds wrong, but sometimes it's like that. And it's a good way of just, again, showing some self-appreciation and love to yourself. And it puts that fundamental of magic on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've mentioned previous, it's different for everybody, but if that's something you've not done, and you're struggling with caring for yourself a little bit, like, and it doesn't even have to be any kind of, go get a chocolate cake, like whatever fucking does it for you. But at the same time, treat yourself that way. And when what she's kind of talking about in the spiritual context is like that not only is a treat for yourself to relax, it's a treat for yourself to grow, because it may not necessarily be an easy experience sometimes, but it's always going to be there.
It's not always an easy experience, and it's not always the funnest experience. Nope. But it's the point of getting to experience something new, getting to maybe broaden the horizon, try something that you've always wanted to do or that friends have talked about, this new wave trend that's coming in. You just want to hop on the bandwagon. You want to use anything with intention, and it's transmuting frequencies between my fingertips to this little blizzy. It's nice. It gives me that healing properties because it's grown from the earth, and I'm thinking about that while I'm inhaling, and I just can't help but to feel better. Naturally, it's just the mind of persuasion, I guess.
Now, on the topic of hallucinogenics and all of that, as Luni Boo was saying, smoking. There is ceremonial herb magic. There is ways to enchant your bud and have it do what you want it to do instead of just getting fried. Now, I have a concept on this. You've done psychedelics, and I know you're aware of the time difference. Right? An hour feels like 4. Now, would that tie into the same way with meditation? Take psychedelics, meditate. Would that expand the process?
In a way, it does it in 2 ways. And we were kind of talking about this earlier outside. It's because if you're using it intentionally as a tool from time to time, what you're able to do is take it from when I'm completely sober meditating. I can still visualize. I can still get the same experience. Yeah. But what the psychedelic does is open me up a little bit more, so it's easier. I don't have to focus as hard physically on my energy. And on top of that, the time I'm spending on it is great. So it's not only more in mass, it's more at an accelerated mass.
And you need that push that you need of getting past that barrier of your personal bubble.
See, you were talking earlier about your experience of meditating for multiple years before you started magic. See, I had an understanding of energy work before I started using psychedelics. And the psychedelics, I took about 7 months of taking psychedelics every day and meditating, sitting in front of a window, listening to the breeze, trying to see how far I can hear. I could hear the highway miles away just by... probably not, but, just meditating and trying to go further and further, see how far I could, I guess, push my psyche to try to fundalize itself. Yeah. Introduce myself to the fundamentals.
When I'm using psychedelics and I'm meditating, and I only use psychedelics in a ritualistic way. I sit down, I'll put my tab on my little altar, and I'll just let it sit there for a little bit, just let it collect as much energy as I can. As I'm dropping, I'll sit there with some rocks, put on some binary beats, and just, chill out, hang out, let it happen. Yeah. And I always try to just sit there and try to do some breathing techniques, because it always helps me open up a lot of my chakras. And I know that sounds a little silly, but it is. I mean, it helps you not experience more, but it helps you open up your body, your spiritual body and your physical body, to the fundamentals of opening up to other worlds and opening up to yourself, because you get to understand that heart emotion. You get to understand how to speak clearly with that throat chakra, the solar plexus. No, that's...
Learn how to talk to yourself.
I mean, for the ceremonial magicians. Chakras correspond to your tree of life.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, it is. But I mean, it's just, it's the basis of getting to learn that and getting to see it and experience it, and it's beautiful. It really is, and it kind of makes you appreciate yourself a little bit more when you get to experience the body like that. I don't know, it's natural and it's beautiful, and it's just like you're a little plant going wherever, however.
So we're hinting around at fundamentals a little bit, and we're not here to teach you those, but that's what my book's for, so you should buy it. So there's your cliffhanger.
Absolutely.
It's not out yet, but you will know.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, what you're just describing, though, is also kind of where you end up. When you actually do that, you begin to have very spiritual experiences. And for me, when I was doing some of my first ritual work, especially because I was targeting my mental health, I was like, I am killing myself. I need to stop. Let's sit down.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, don't verbatim that, but yeah, no. When you're at your darkest hour and you don't know what else to do, sit and be present for a minute. Because what's going to happen is those thoughts aren't going to stop. That's what the meditation's for. That's a practice. That's why it's a practice. It doesn't just poof. But if you sit there for a minute and just be with yourself and exist and realize, I'm breathing, I am here, I am in this state. This is how it feels. It's valid. All right, we're just going to sit with it for a minute, because it's not going to go away. Don't suffer with it, though. Just sit with it.
I think a lot of people who discovered spirituality by themselves have went through the same construct, because with me, I started researching it because I got tired of going through the same cycle of killing myself. And it just made me want to help myself and reach towards something better, instead of, just destroying my mass.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? I mean, I don't mean to question you by that, but do you think that you'd be comfortable explaining what you mean by that to the podcast?
Up to you.
Yeah.
Got
that out. Sorry. I think it'd be nice.
The main thing that made me discover my spirituality, in a sense, was my ODing experiences, where I seen the light and I seen my physical body, and I could move in between both of them and feel my consciousness, I guess, dissolving the further away I got from my body. Yes. And it was like a weird limbo of, I'm fully conscious, but I'm out of physical space. And I know if I go into that light, my body is no more. And I sat down, I'd passed out for 5 days. And that just made me go onto a quick track of, hey, maybe I should fix this instead of, you can't keep going through that cycle. It's destroying your body.
Exactly.
My condolences for that. I know it's hard to go through those cycles of addiction, self-hate, not self-hate, but just in general, that self beat up, that
The
that
depression
wanting,
cycle.
yeah, that wanting of not wanting to be here, that wanting to escape everything that you can, even if it's God knows what, you
Yeah.
know. It's just, and that's another important part of about learning your spirituality and yourself and magic. It's you're getting to learn healthy coping mechanisms
Yes.
that can guide you where you need to be, where you want to be, and comfortably.
Yeah.
You know, it's you pick and choose with what you want, and there's no right or wrong. Everybody gets to pick what they want.
Does it work or does it not?
Absolutely. You know, whatever works for you works. If you don't
Exactly.
want to ride on a bay leaf, don't
do
ride
it.
on it. Don't do it.
So when it kind of going from that whole idea of being at that lowest point, my first spiritual experience was when I sat down to actually do my first bit of energy work. So I've been through kind of the core meditation bouts, and Damien Eccles taught this just basic physics. It's like rub your hands together and make some friction. Do you feel the heat? Congratulations, you just did energy work. And I was like, what? Hold on. And he's like, yeah, now we're going to take that like 20 million times further.
Wow.
And it's great because what I did before I even understood the meditation and the actual pulling down energy from a more divine source, just using natural magic and physical elements, you would do basic rituals where you just rub your hands together, visualize the energy, manifest an intention into it, and set it free as a thought
Yeah.
form or charge it into
You know,
something.
ironically, Joe is the person who had introduced me into opening up these doors of my psychic abilities, myself, and appreciating it. And he's been doing that for quite a while. And you saying that now is just kind of blowing my mind and baffling me of, wow, I didn't know that alone is serial
magic.
serial magic. But I didn't know that, you know, and that's another thing about being on this podcast today is we're getting to learn, jump back and forth on what everything is,
yeah.
and this is awesome. I gotta say that I can't help it.
See, with him saying him rubbing his hands together with energy, you know, that's energy work. Well, my first experiences with energy work, I was, you know, kind of walked through it, but like maybe 6-7 years ago, what you would want to do is you take whatever pose is comfortable for you and you put your fingertips together and you try to feel the inside of your fingertips, like what would be the meat, you know. But, you know, you would try to visualize that as a light. And you would make your fingertips light up and you try to visualize that going to your other hand. And the way I taught her was me doing that. And then I did that while holding her hands. And I told her, you know, this side is pushing out to me. This side is pushing out to you. Watch the lights. And that's how she got into being able to.
I picked it up immediately. I don't know how, honestly. I think I'm naturally really good at picking everything up. Sometimes I think I'm a psychic vampire, but then I have to sit down and realize, no.
No, I would have told you already.
Yeah,
You
I
wouldn't
know.
be talking to
I
me.
wouldn't have these many friends. I wouldn't have as much friendly friends if I was a psychic vampire. And it's like, how the fuck do I gain this much energy though? It's like,
So that's the
it's
comment
ridiculous.
I wanted to make about you. I see all the things that you do kind of just between working and your community and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You put out way more energy than I can fathom. And
Dude,
I'm like,
I don't
how are you
know.
talking to all these people at the same time? I'm like Tiffany is. I shut down. Like, man, I'm good.
Dude.
I'm gonna lock myself away.
I have no idea. Like, I honestly have no idea. I am like a train. I will just keep pushing
It's
and pushing
so
and
amazing.
pushing and
I'm just like,
pushing.
this girl's got like
Dude,
infinite energy.
I
What
don't
is
know.
she
I
doing?
don't know where
want
it
some of
comes
that.
from, and I think, you know, a part of me thinks that a divinity is guiding me or trying to guide through me and trying to provide me with this sense of energy to push me to where I need to be and where I want to be and who I am. Because I feel like it's not only important to me, but it's important to everybody above, you know, spiritually speaking. They're sitting here watching, not voting on who's going to win or lose, you know, hypothetically, but who can they help guide and what can they do to help progress in somebody else's life. Yeah. And that alone is just a goal. for somebody that spends eternity, God knows doing what, but you know, I'm sure it's fun for them, and it's fun for me to sit down and enjoy the help and guidance that I have, especially as a solo practitioner, because it's important. Yep.
On the topic of you not knowing where she gets all of her energy, it mind boggles me too, but I've come up with a I guess it'd be a conspiracy or a theory. You know, she is naturally gifted at energy work. Like, she just picks it up immediately, and I think that one of her, you know, natural or, you know, family abilities is the ability to pick that energy up, and where she gets it from is residual energy. And, you know, that would say you walk the same path 100 times, even if you're not there, you're going to be walking that path. That's residual energy, and I think she could just pick that up and feed off of that no matter where she goes.
Honestly, if I can, my family refuses to talk about anything other than Christianity. And
Praise Jesus, hallelujah. If it ain't God, it ain't right.
well, you know, and I try my hardest to sit down and learn without paying a burn pocket full of money on what my history is. What is the bloodline like? And I still really can't figure it out, but I mean, like, free working with my ancestry, my shadow, and just myself, I've been able to, my ear's ringing now, it's just, I've been able to sit down and understand that I do naturally possess abilities. What they are, I'm not 100% sure, because, you know, I'm not reading out of a book for all of this, but I'm learning it from this spiritual world and spiritual feelings. And I think that's kind of important with anybody that's feeling a certain way and thinking that they're crazy and they haven't discovered their spirituality or who they are yet, because I was there once, and now it baffles me on who I am and what I'm doing right now, because it's, as a 14-year-old girl, I would have never thought that these voices were real. I really wouldn't. But a good majority of them are. And I'm not saying, you know, everybody else's out there is, because there's a lot of them that it's just mind trickery.
Yeah.
But I get to sit down and I acknowledge what's being told to me, what's being brought, and what's being manifested for me. And it's truly a blessing more than it is anything. But, you know, you're allowed to shut that off whenever you decide, if you are able to. You know, you got to learn those abilities and how to control yourself, your emotions, and, again, that personal bubble.
I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on reincarnation?
I was just about to go there, so that's a great question. So,
We're on the same level.
when it comes to reincarnation, ceremonial magic has a few schools of thought, but the primary, most resonating school of thought just comes from where you have to kind of break down. So, like I mentioned, the tree of math. It's a math tree, honestly. God damn it, there is so much math. Anyway, the tree of life, like I said, it kind of corresponds to chakras in a way. Not one-to-one, but it's the same idea.
Yeah.
And so you could pick either one, and it would fundamentally do the same thing for you. But what that also implies is there is a path to enlightenment. Well, a lot of the Western or Eastern traditions teach that idea of reincarnation, at least on the religious side, not necessarily on the meditative side, but definitely in anything that has an ounce of spirituality or religion, they teach some idea of reincarnation. So ceremonial magic is no different. We have on the tree of life, there are the different spheres. So at the very top, there you got all the stuff in the middle. There's planetary, there's solar, corresponds to lunar, there's your zodiacal. It's all the stuff that's in every magical practice. It's just we just map it out.
Mm-hmm. We just all make a different diagram.
Yeah, we draw different circles and pointy things in. We're working through the same kind of chart or the same entities in a way, not the same way, but same entities. So energy. Yeah, and they all exist consistently on the same plane, and they're mapped the same way. So what basically at the top though is what we call the Ein Sof and the Ein. So there's one more below that that is this idea of everything. Then the Ein Sof is kind of limitless light. Yeah. So you go from light to limitless light, and the Ein is nothing. And so in ceremonial magic, your goal is, whereas the Western traditions or Eastern traditions, keep doing that. Eastern traditions will care about getting there in multiple lifetimes. Ceremonial magic, this is a direct quote from Damien Eccles. These are not my words, but I say them all the time. The Eastern traditions aim to get there multiple lifetimes. With the Western, with ceremonial magic, is one lifetime. So it's like shooting adrenaline into that process. And they're both valid. They still get you to the same place, just when you want to do it. And that's what you pick up on in your lifetime, right? So when it comes to reincarnation with ceremonial magic, there's a kind of an idea that says if you die without completing the great work or achieving enlightenment, whatever sphere you were working on, whatever you come back in through will kind of be through one of those spheres. You don't necessarily get a hard you don't necessarily get to start back where you picked off. Mm-hmm. But in a way you do, because you're coming at a higher playing field, and at whatever you come, spiritually you are. Then you just have to work through that lifetime again to figure that out.
It's not a physical reincarnation like that, because
it's very much just a pure spiritual.
There's a lot of people that are the same souls, but are still living in the same time zone or living in the same, physical era. There's a lot of people that are just like soulmates. That's two souls split up into one, and now they're just trying to complete each other. And that right there is just like a little bubble of that tree, honestly.
And that's what hell is too, is you coming back, and the difference between what we would perceive as hell in ceremonial magic and
I would personally say underground, but that's just the Hades in me. I can't have it.
I love Hades. But
he's a buddy.
but that all that is, it's not you're burning for centuries. It's that you didn't have the spiritual, you didn't break through the boundaries, so you're just repeating life, and you at some point will break out of that when you're ready, when it's time for your thing to come, when you choose to take on your will rather than just living freely, and it doesn't direct you there. And we talked about it a little bit last. That's not a contradiction, but it is. It's beautiful. I love it. There's nothing. They run the same. I love it.
Everything's beautiful if you accept it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just accepting the concept of infinity.
Amen.
But when you break out of that, say you're in that, that's where you start, and that's not necessarily for everybody. We don't know. It's impossible because it's infinite. We don't know. There's no clear starting point. We just can look back as far as we can.
It's just like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm ready.
And so
let's continue.
When you get from hell, you go kind of to Earth where we are now. Go through that, and then you can break through each other spheres as you go. And there is this idea of a demiurge or an Ouroboros.
Well, no matter where you go, you're always gonna have an asshole. Okay. And it don't matter where you go. No. Underworld, heaven, earth.
Because you're gonna have to keep
building.
Star
beings.
You're gonna have to keep building.
Absolutely, you're gonna have to learn to grow past it. Say, all right, man, vibe on.
That's right.
And then continue.
The reason I brought that up is because I do believe we all have a quest that we're here to achieve, and I don't think that we could complete that quest in one lifetime.
It's very hard.
And what is your thoughts on being able to tap into past lives?
So that it's almost necessary in a way. The way I've experienced that, and this is perfect. So I was. My second spiritual experience outside of just the initial wave of figuring out the energy work. My next one was I was in a really bad place. I was on a vacation, and I did just a crap ton of DXM. And I was laying on the couch. I thought I was gonna die. I had Echo with me. He was doing his therapy thing, being a good boy. Felt so bad for him. I won't do that to him again. But he. What happened ended up being a very positive experience, because it was scary for a minute, and I disassociated so hard that I began talking to myself, and not like in a I'm talking to myself way. No, I visualized myself in a divine form.
Understandable.
And that me gave a shit, and it said, "Hey, here's what I know from all my history. I cannot tell you everything. I do not know this." You're also keeping in mind, it was kind of like, by the way, you're on drugs, so this could be bullshit too. Just be logical. It's like I was helping myself.
It kind of seem like it was just kind of like a spirit guide sense?
Almost.
I feel like I wasn't in a life or death situation, but I felt like I've experienced and learned knowledge from the past by an ancestry, but I wasn't able to clearly see their face.
Yeah.
So that right there just kind of makes me wonder and question even more on what the fuck was it?
Right. Well, that's what I said. It's sort of an ancestral experience because it was talking to me from a clearly familial feeling. That's what it resonated, but it was me. It was my face.
Where it feels natural and you're not afraid, you're calm, and it's like, okay, well, this is home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just my face on top of that. So I didn't
think
talk to an ancestor, but
I think it happens a lot more than we realize it does. So I mean, I'm glad that you kind of had that experience, because if not, you wouldn't be here right now progressing the way that you are, which, you know. Well,
after that, the very serious, and I cooled down. I was having a more chill time. I stared at the ceiling, and there was a blue light, and that turned into an angel, and that was a whole different kind. We laughed. That was a joking kind. I still think it was 99% just being whacked out of my mind, but that 1% kind of likes the idea that I was joking with a buddy.
We've all been a mythical creature once in a while.
Them popcorn ceilings do be vibing, though.
They do. It was.
But on the topic of, soulmates, just souls split apart from different lifetimes and being able to see your past lives, me and her have experienced something together where, we were...
Like tiki torches.
No, not even the tiki torches one. It was... we were sitting there meditating together, doing the energy work that we were talking about before, and we got flashbacks that we, talked about later. But it was like us going through a war.
It was like
like Renaissance war. Like I had a sword and a shield, and she was standing beside me, and it was like I looked over at her, and I'm like, and then it just turned off, and it's like, okay, well, even before I first met you, I felt like I knew you, but I didn't think anything of it. I just thought you were pretty, but whatever.
Cool, this works too.
Much appreciated. But I mean, like, I feel like there's a reason why I'm put in everybody's life, for a main reason. I feel like everybody that I'm connecting with now is people that I've connected with not just now, just in a maybe spiritual way, maybe in a past life, maybe in the future. I don't know. I'm just trusting the flow as much as possible.
So the most recent spiritual experience that I was excited to tell you about outside and I shut my mouth.
Yeah, tell me.
Was so my dailies, like I mentioned before we kind of got started, are a lot of banishing and invoking rituals of the hexagram. But before I do that, I always lately, I actually just started this week. I introduced the middle pillar into it just to ground myself a lot further. Not just to cleanse. I want full grounding, full flow. I wanted none of my own energy as part of this process. Give me all divinity. Let's get into it.
I mean, it's understandable. It's intoxicating to have that power.
Light,
you know what I mean?
that
energy, that static fizz feeling, that warmth feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I don't know another better description to give it.
And that's usually the only thing that I physically feel during a meditative practice. I still visualize everything just fine, but it's in my mind's eye most of the time, because I wasn't very good at visual. That's what took the years of meditation and doing it naturally, and it took a long time and a lot of hard work. But now what I kind of deciphered, and I talk about this more in my book, the easy way to get started doing that is using your imagination. So even if you don't have a very vibrant imagination, most of us can at least think of a memory. Yeah. That is a visualization.
I have a perfect explanation for that one. The light feeling, you're trying to explain it. It's like when you were a little kid, you had those big dome TVs that are like 90 fucking pounds. Walking up to one of those things while I was on a static channel and touching it, you could literally feel the electricity,
it's
staticking
like
on you.
It's even warmer.
It just kind of reminds me of some poltergeist shit, and I'm
I
terrified.
Guess that visualization is not great for that, but that is the feeling. That is the feeling.
It's the same feeling as McDonald's Sprite, damn it.
There you go.
Amen. McDonald's don't sound bad right now.
We can get something to eat out of this. But
right, smooth that blizzy. We just vibing, y'all.
Yeah, we're having a great time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so normally I do get just like the warm fuzzies, and I do my visualizations, no matter how basic they are, whether it's just seeing an orb of light.
Well, I mean, visualizations are visualizations,
yes,
and you can't compare them to what other people see, because everybody is different. Everybody is open to different things.
When somebody draws up a visualization for you, it's really just a reference. It's to help you get started if you can't do it on your own.
I believe a visualization is just your mind trying to comprehend feelings.
Yes. Yes,
That is a good point. Yeah.
That is why like all like the symbols. That's why we do drawing all in ceremony. We do all the pentagrams because those symbols
That gives you that physical feeling.
Our subconscious knows what those means, even though, and we can make a logical mapping in our brain and know what it means, but it's communicating something different internally than it is physical.
It's just that frequency feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just just you taking it and writing it down takes that
Energy
and
that consciousness energy into physical matter.
Absolutely.
And it helps it transfer it more over from in your head to this is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could take that application on, just writing things down and whatnot, and even the topic of, loving yourself in the love notes. It's taking something from your head and making it physical.
Yes. It's your physical form of manifestation.
Yeah, absolutely. Speak it into existence. Yep. Even if it's not speaking, write it. Do whatever you do.
I think it went around the internet. It said abracadabra was a whole old Hebrew term which was pronounced abracadabra, which means I speak, therefore it is. Loosely, I can't copy it straight down.
I think the only correction I would make is abrahadabra.
There we go.
But everything else, yes, spot on. That's exactly true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is where we get abracadabra in stage magic.
In the magician shit. Yeah. Well, a while ago we were talking about how they can use different chemicals to change the color of the fire.
Yeah.
As a magician, to just make it a pink or a green, and then it's like, oh wow, look at me.
That's a
Well, my fault. I'm not a big fan, not big fan. I mean, I would love to study alchemy when I have the chance and the time and hobby to, but that is one thing that I'm probably more than likely going to struggle with, only because math.
I'm not an alchemist.
Math.
I teach. I'm in the book. There's a fundamentals of alchemy section just to introduce you to it, but I don't teach it. That's not.
Understandable. When you jump into it, let me know. You give me a call.
Have you heard of the? It goes on to the topic of reincarnation and whatnot. Have you heard of the recent discoveries of the light holes?
No.
Okay, so they're like they're literally the opposite of black holes. Black holes suck things in, tear it apart. And the light holes, they just send that stuff out. And, my concept about that is, the black hole takes things in, rips matter apart, puts it into, the basic fundamentals of, atoms. Yeah, and then energy, and then the light hole puts it back out to the universe to recycle it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes straight with the first, second law of thermodynamics. It's kind of like logical that should exist. So we could have probably assumed, but it's cool that we're getting evidence for it.
Yeah, I think it was pretty recent. Some scientists, looking in their big ass telescopes.
I wish I could afford one of them.
The basic visualization of a light hole would be same fundamentals as a proton star. It's a hole, it's hollow, and it has its flares. That's basically what it'd be like.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. I'm glad that they can discover new stuff like that. It's just...
Hell, when you spend $170 billion on a telescope, you better be able to see something.
I hope so, yeah. I mean,
where are my taxpayer dollars going? That's the kind of shit I'm into. Keep doing that.
That's what I'm saying, y'all. That SpaceX. Keep it going.
I wanted to bring this up earlier. We were recently reading into some things about there being a theory of a second moon. And that would, I thought of that concept as, it must have broken apart a while ago, But the moons protect us from asteroids, right? They're our physical shield of our Earth being destroyed by a giant rock. But, there being a second moon, that would be physically plausible. It would explain the Noah's Ark situation and whatnot. The tides being controlled and whatnot.
That is one potential
the
solution.
moon breaks apart, it hits the earth, causes the tides to go ape shit, you know what I mean? Another concept on that was I said earlier, there might have been a lot more natural magic earlier, right? And another moon, the moon ourself is already very powerful in transmitting those frequencies to us. It's like a mirror of energy from whatever the hell it comes from. But another moon would just enhance our natural abilities to form bonds with spirits and energy in the world.
Yeah.
But, all just theories.
It really is. But
I
they
mean,
make
yeah.
good sense.
It's understandable. Everybody has something that they're comfortable with, something that they want to believe in, something that they have faith. It's whatever the fuck you decide to do, whatever you decide to have fun with. It's all creative stuff.
I'm not saying I believe that there was 2 moons. I'm just saying it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying you're on definite on. I'm just saying
I'm
for
on
like
Team 2 Moon.
I'm
Fuck
saying
y'all.
for like I'm just saying for like these people that are listening, like don't be afraid of believing in what you want to believe in. It is important. Like get comfortable with yourself.
I think it's more credible than the flat earth theory.
A little bit.
Well, and I'll kind of add on to that because
Don't judge me.
not the flat Earth theory, but I'll add on to kind of what Luni was saying with the idea that you believe what you want to believe, because and this is a dangerous idea, so I'm gonna navigate carefully.
It could exaggerate your ego.
Right. So it could do a lot of dangerous things, but in a way that's also good, because if you believe what you want to believe and what you believe is toxic, as long as you're able to grow out of that, you will get exponentially more growth. The reason it's dangerous is because you could fall into something toxic. So
I mean, you
just
could
pay
fall
attention
into
to
that
yourself
mental.
and be present. That's like if you can go back to that core, that's a very neutral core.
If you fall back into that mentality of always going to be toxic, it's not going to change.
Back into the what we were talking about earlier with the toxic cycles and experiencing spirituality. Even if you are so-called enlightened, you can still be broken down back to nothing just because of your ego and how you carry your energy.
Absolutely.
Especially while you're here.
I
Yeah,
can't tell you
exactly.
how many
If
times
you're
that
a
I
human
thought I knew
being
something.
and you have achieved that state, like bravo, but that I know that, and I haven't even gotten there. What they teach beyond that is it keeps working. There's nothing more we can do for you.
Yeah.
You have to keep this. This is yours now. You made it.
Understandable.
Good luck.
I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times that I've been knocked back because I thought I was too good for something that I was ready for. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, no, I'm going to just hold off. And then it was like, oh, nah, you're going to start all over again because fuck you, you're not paying attention. I mean, it's a shitty process, but at the same time, it gets shit done. You know what I mean? Like, it gets you motivated. It gets you off your ass. And it makes you pay attention on what's not just about you, but what's around you. It's important.
So when I was going through kind of the tinglies, so kind of that's a common thing. But this week coming down, this is kind of in reference to the last episode too. So getting a little context, please. The whole SSRI withdrawal thing. Normally, and I've described this before, but it's either a cloudy mind or it's an open mind. If I'm off them, it's an open mind. If I'm on them, it's a cloudy mind. But that doesn't affect the thoughts. It affects what I can kind of see. It's a visual. It's how I express it visually, because it's not. It's chemical. I can't actually put it out. I can't. It's hard to explain.
It's
But
understandable.
but the thoughts aren't any different. I don't do anything different. It's just physically how my brain kind of feels.
Have you ever thought about maybe the company? Like maybe it's just the company that you're around that is causing you to refute, like to act a certain way. Because
it's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about your environment, your mentality, and again, your intentions. But if you're going in with a clear mind or somewhat of a clear mind, you're going in with your intentions. And you know what you want to do. You know what's going to happen. Or to a point, you know what's going to happen. You know what you're prepared for. And then shit starts to go south. Maybe it's not always you. Maybe you have to start looking outside the box and start fixing the shit that's outside instead inside.
Or even accepting it if it's out of your control.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That brings up an interesting topic. Have you ever heard of the crab mentality? Crab mentality.
The crab thing I've heard recently is the theory of everybody is a crab. Thank you, Aaron Hansen.
Okay, so here's the basis of crab mentality. It was taught to me by someone else. Okay, so you put a crab in a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket. It can get out, right? Just one crab, it can get out by itself. It'll crawl out the bucket. It'll find a way. Put 20 crabs in a bucket. One crab goes to crawl out. The other crabs will pull it back down. No matter how smart you are, if you have people around you hindering you, they're going to keep pulling you back down to stage one. Always. Every single time. Just like the crab in a bucket.
That is great.
Yeah. If a crab is by itself, it'll eventually get out.
So when going through that kind of suffering, it's like it's not the medication difference or anything like that.
It's about having to face the solitude.
Exactly, and it's being so practiced now over these years. When I went into it now, it was like, okay, I know this is gonna suck, and exactly like you're saying, it's like I'm going to respond to this way. Because it is,
and I'm gonna give it this emotion. I'm going to show, hey, I'm not afraid. I'm big bad bitch, and I can do it.
That's right. And the biggest spiritual experience I had was just this week.
Having
in
confidence.
the middle of it, I was doing my normal dailies, and I had finally cried for the first time in like months.
Good.
And
I mean, not like necessarily good, but like that's a good
thing.
I've
been wanting to cry. Like I've been frustrated because I couldn't. I was like, I want to do this.
It's understandable. I mean, like, I lost my shit Saturday. And I mean, like, I didn't want to, but it was needed. And I'm utterly grateful that I did because, fuck, I couldn't have gone this upcoming week with the way that I was feeling, the way that I was, moving. And I'm glad that I was able to let go. And I'm glad that you were able to let go. It sounds like we both got rid of some shit before this full moon, and that is important because, me and Joe. Well, I know, but me and Joe were talking last night about what do you want to change during this full moon. Try to set a goal between just even moon phases. It's such a powerful thing. It's such a creative tide. Start creating goals that are so small, but you're willing to accomplish and push yourself towards. Even without magic.
2 weeks is a long time to figure out a small goal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's something. It's a small goal. It's something worth it, and it's worth a try. Because what's not worth a try?
Yeah. Well, and in that regard, it's like, say you're having trouble achieving your goals, and you set those small goals. What he just said is that those 2 weeks really are a long time for a small goal. Because if you actually focus on the goal and you say, you prepare yourself, you give yourself, this is a tool, you give yourself 2 weeks to achieve this goal. Don't like time box yourself necessarily, but say you're roughly going to finish it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you actually dive in and start focus on it, guarantee you'll finish it in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, like, it just, it really, I was doing not your artwork, but just like trying to help provide some assistance, etc. And I didn't think I could do it as fast as I did. And then I sat down and I was like, well, damn, I might as well just go right on in, ball swinging. Yeah. Because, I mean, no, I don't have no ball. You know what I mean?
You can use that same experience on to, being comfortable with yourself. That even that goal as big as being comfortable with yourself, you can accomplish that in 2 weeks. So it's just like an example of that would be, even if you only have an hour or two to yourself a day, that's hell. That's 30 hours for, that's 30 hours in 2 weeks. And it could be something as small as going into your room, turning off all the lights, turning off all the sound, and sitting there in silence for 2 hours. Like, let your brain rest, because every day all you're hearing is traffic, TV, music, your self-thoughts, racing. Give yourself time to actually appreciate the sounds that your brain is talking to you about. You know what I mean? And I know some people, they distract those thoughts because sometimes they aren't the best. And, by all means, distract those thoughts if you think it's better for you. But it comes to a point where you have to face yourself and be comfortable with, just sitting in your own thoughts.
Just being comfortable with yourself and what you're doing with your life. And, again, I don't mean to keep bringing up the beginning of this podcast to now, but it's so important to just sit down and absorb everything that you can, whether that's in nature, whether that's being on the train station and you're just taking in what other people are doing. You're doing what you're doing as a daily routine, unconscious. Yeah, absolutely. You're on auto drive, and you're just sitting there not appreciating anything, but rather thinking negatively about it, where you can turn it around and have a positive experience. Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's always a chance to turn something around, I know there's some people out there that are going to be negative thinking about
well,
this,
there's
but
even
you know,
situations that you can't truly make it into a positive, but you
Yeah.
can pick the most positive
yeah,
version.
or at least, you know, try to push towards it,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't work. Fuck it. If
You
it
did
doesn't
better than
work,
you would have not doing it.
exactly. Again, what's the harm in trying? There is never a harm in trying, because at least you're going to get is a disappointment, not from anybody else but yourself.
You
And
keep
then
trying.
you can always come back from that.
Even if the situation is mostly negative and you can't find a happy situation about it, there's always that thought of, you know, this won't be forever.
Right.
Because, you know, forever is infinite. You know, even if this is 10, 15 years of torture, you know, that's nothing in the infinite cosmos.
Absolutely nothing.
It plays on to the, you know, the ego, and, you know, you could be the best magic practitioner there is in the world, you know, proven, you know, you can walk on water, but even then you're still just a grain of dust in everything.
All made from the same
Yeah.
butt crack of solar juice.
Yeah, I mean, 35 years here is 25 minutes somewhere else, you know.
We all came from the light holes.
Disclaimer, we cannot physically prove that.
But so this week though, I did my normal rituals after kind of like I got that release
Nice.
finally, and this time when I did my invoking ritual, I had a very strong visualization of each of the archangels surrounding me. And I also incorporate Metatron and Samophon. That's why we're in my sanctuary, by the way.
Yeah, it's like
It's the first time I record this in here. But I have sigils for each of the archangels around the room for the banishing and invoking rituals, just as a helpful visualization, physical element.
to give you some boost.
Just or if like I'm walking around,
It's
and
understandable.
I
do it with expos.
What is the mantra here?
I do it with
This is
expos,
okay, I know
so
what
I
it is.
understand 100%. It's like all over the wall. I was like, what the fuck? It comes off.
But I incorporate them as well because that's what one of the practices David Nichols taught, kind of just to close the sphere, not just do the walls. But
Yeah.
this time I visualize each angel every single time, but this time they stepped towards me when I invoked them, and they laid their hands on me.
How'd that make
And
you feel?
I cried. It was very powerful. It was the most powerful. Like, this is your note. If you want to ever cite me as a crazy person, here it is. Take it. This is free. I don't care. But
I understand, man.
But they all laid their hands on me, and I cried, and I said, "You guys are actually here for me. Holy shit!"
Yeah.
And then I told them to do what I always tell them. I put myself together, and I said, "Thank you, Raphael. Do what I told you to do." Went through each of the ones that I'm working with them for.
Yeah.
Same thing with Above and Below. But each time now, when I did that, I held their hands. I reached out and I tried to feel them holding my hands. I tried to increase that visual, make it stronger and stronger and stronger, and really feel that.
bond.
Yeah, and so I did that, and now ever since that happened once, it's happened
like-
every single time.
it's like
It's
that
powerful
always.
every single time. I don't cry every single time. Now.
I mean,
I'm
it's
used
understandable.
To it, but it's that, like, before you got like 2 hours before you came here, I did my daily, and I was
Yeah.
like, I did it in my living room this time because I was setting up the podcast space, and I was like, why is this this is just a thing. Now this is where I've achieved to in my visualization of this. There's something that finally broke and grew, and I was just like, so those are my big three.
Understandable.
It was crazy.
I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad that you're not only allowed to just reassure yourself, but you have but you have beings and guidance out there that is helping provide to make yourself better. You know, it's important to you. It's important to the people that you're around. It's important to me because I get to sit here and experience this with you and experience a whole excessive amount of magic communications with you only because we connect on a certain level, you know. And if it wasn't for all of that up there and God knows where, we probably wouldn't be here right now. And that I have to thank everybody who you're working with, who I'm working with, and who is on your path to just, you know, appreciation of thank you for putting this together and taking the time to just to sort it out, making it work as well as it has, as smoothly as it has, even if it's shit for us.
Yeah.
I kind of want to pick your brain on a concept here of an experience I had with working with Luni Boo's energy. So we were, you know, laying in bed, meditating and whatnot, and I was trying to fix her energy because she was going through a pretty rough time at the point. And So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to like read her aura, and I'm getting these goldish, whitish colors, and that's in the background. But okay, so at first it started black, right, and then I start getting small colors and whatnot, like something's trying to peek through, and then I finally peek through that, and it opens up gold, and then a purple layer goes over it, and I'm trying to find where I need to go by just traversing, just by pushing my energy different places. And I'm just about to get to where I think I need to go, and these 5, I want to say these 5 beings stopped me, and it was like, what are you doing here? And it wasn't like physical. It looked like tall shadow people, like how you're explaining the archangel standing around you. It gave me that visualization of 5 people standing around me asking me what I'm doing here. And it's like, I'm just trying to help, man. And it's like, we have this, go. And it pushed me out of her aura, and I haven't been able to properly read her since.
I've had a couple of experiences where I've had multiple deities come up to me, and it's like, what the fuck? Am I tripping? Am I crazy? Am I actually hearing this, or are you real? And I don't ever mean to offend any spiritual being that ever comes forward, but it's confusing on my end, because to me, I can only hear my voice repeating what they're saying. So it's like,
Can't differentiate.
yeah, I can't differentiate where the conversation is me and them. So it's like I'm having a conversation with just myself.
Is that ever, or I guess 2 questions, is that ever a construct of you not invoking them and them just coming to you naturally?
Yes.
And how is that different from when you choose to invoke them?
When I'm choosing to invoke Hecate or / Hades, because I do not work with Hades. Let me just go ahead and clarify that. I do not work with Hades.
Stand Hades.
Honestly, he knows. Aphrodite kind of hates me for it. I can't help it. We argue. But my best friend, she works with Hades, and he is a wonderful protector for her. Anytime that we are working on an astral protective on a level together, he is there. He is always like, hey girl, what is up? What's going on? What's happening? Yeah, what's going on? Like, he gets her to buy me fucking rocks all the time, because he's like, nah, your girl needs this. And it's like, no, I don't. But thank you. I appreciate the offer. And, he's always questioning if he can work with me privately, and I don't feel comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. Only because I'm already working with Hecate. I've already worked with a good amount of faces with her. Yeah. She's definitely very, just very much so. And I feel like, we just collaborate so well together. Like, our energy just collaborates well. Because myself, I feel like I am just kind of like a mirror person with other people. Like, my energy just bounces back with however you're feeling. It's just how it happens, or how I visualize it. And, normally when I'm working with her, I can hear myself, but it's not myself, but just by the way the demeanor is. But with the way it is with Hades, I'm constantly questioning, is this me? Or is this you? What is happening?
Or spirit guide, or
well,
yourself.
I mean, I've had not Michelangelo, Saint no, not Saint Michael. No, not Augustine.
Saint Bernard, that's a dog.
No, I can't remember, honestly. Saint Anthony. Anthony. There was a friend, the one that we were talking about previously outside. She was working with him, and I could feel him every now and then, kind of like peeping in. And like one day, I'd finally said something, and I was like, "Yo, are you legit here, or am I crazy?" And it was like, "Nah, I am here." And a whole bunch of shit started moving around, and I was just so confused on what is happening, like, both. A kind of both. Because, like, I was kind of just, I don't know, in, like, La La Land, if that makes sense. Like, I was just kind of, like, dissociating, if that makes sense. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's kind of how it always is. It's like that little... Yeah, like, I'm just kind of staring off into La La Land, and I'm just not here. But, I don't know, man. It's just, they come and go, and I feel like I'm obligated to always say yes. But I've learned recently that I'm allowed to deny them as much as possible, just like they're allowed to deny me. Whenever I invoke them, ask them to come and help, or try to just offer up offerings, because I learned the hard way with Apollo.
That, you lit off so many light bulbs in my brain.
Sorry.
That's why I was smiling.
I can't help it.
No, I'm super excited now because eventually in my practice, I have to work with all deities.
Yeah.
And I'm only experiencing that of what's in the context of the Kabbalah right now, which is a lot. It's a lot.
I feel like the Morgan has been trying to reach out, but I'm also really conflicted. Baphomet has reached out. I did a candle, never relit it. Oopsie daisies.
Sorry.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think they're mad, honestly. But I mean, there's this owl that has been outside of my house for 6 fucking months, man, and it's been hooing. I can hoo perfectly back at it, and I feel like we're telepathically communicating. And it's crazy because I feel like it's Lilith, but it's also a form of Hecate, which kind of confuses me because of a lot of history that I've read that Lilith is a daughter of Hecate, but is also just a worker of Hecate, or is just a friend. I mean, there's so many sets up.
Still kind of, I can see where that gets confused, right? Because they all still can represent the exact same thing, but the actual fact of
the dark
blurry.
feminine reality, you know. And I mean, Hecate's more of like the torchbearer, the key holder, the web weaver, where I see Lilith as the sexualized woman, the feminine divine of touching your inner darkness. That's how I see Lilith, or how I would. Hypothetically, I mean, I'm always constantly guessing their image is wrong.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that. Never mind. But no, that's what blew up in my head just now was that, and don't get me wrong, it's not easy by any stretch.
No,
but
it's not, because you're constantly guessing: is it a trick? Is it me?
Yeah,
is it what's happening?
And when you're first beginning, especially if you took any kind of similar path to what I took in ceremonial magic, when you first start working with angels, you do get that same, like, is what I invoked before me an angel, or is this some energy that, because I'm a novice, I don't know what I'm doing working with these entities. How is this supposed to feel? I can only go based off what's been written down, but it's different for everybody. That's one of the very personal things, is how you experience it. And what's so fascinating about these other deities that I'm so looking forward to is a lot of them have personalities and attitudes that are very consistent. Everybody I talk to that works with these deities always describes very similar, if not exactly the same things, and I'm kind of just expecting it, because when you work with the angels, you're either terrified of them or you're in control. It's the only two.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
So they come in and you're either scared to death or you're like, hey homies,
bro,
what's up?
You try to
this
smoke?
This is what you're fucking doing today.
You try to smoke? Let's smoke, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And so you evolve into that, but that's what it's going to be.
I feel like I've seen myself as a biblical angel once, only because of how my third eye is. It's kind of like, it's like a mirror film, or like, not a film, but like that glare, you know what I mean? Like where you have the light shining at a mirror and it bounces back and it has like that rainbow glow. Yeah, that's how I feel like my aura is, and that alone is just kind of like how I see it, as like a mirror person. That's kind of like what I mean by that. It made me think of it.
That would kind of explain, it's a common thing in spirituality is the oneness feeling.
Yes.
That would be a perfect explanation of that.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that get that oneness feeling mixed up and actually being at one. Right. You know what I mean? Because the ego is really easy to trick with that feeling. Like, really easy.
I was having a conversation with a buddy the other night, and homie was, I won't reveal too many details because I don't know how comfortable he would be. He was he was coherent. We were having a beautiful conversation, actually. That's how coherent he is. And he's a very smart man. But he was clearly anxious and questioning several different things and just was diving down different rabbit holes. It was fun. It was very cordial, very friendly, very enlightening conversation. Yeah, I have nothing negative to say about the situation other than the dude was he was out of it, so he's kind of going after it a little bit harder than normal. Everything else
it's understandable. I mean, like when you're all fucked up, we
fucked up. So but it was cool because what he would describe was that whole idea of, how do I know these things are what they are and working for me, because he's not spiritual at all.
Yeah, I mean,
but he was very interested.
Sometimes you can just simply ask point blank, and sometimes you really gotta deep dive. Sometimes you really gotta not dive into who you are, but dive into their energy. And I know that sounds crazy. There's not a lot.
They exist.
There's not a lot of people that will understand that though, because that's kind of like an expertise thing, or like just in general experimental thing, something that you already need to have practice for, because if not, you could be hurting yourself, you could be damaging your mentality and your spirituality. It's
like picking up a hammer and not knowing how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you got to be cautious no matter where you go, but it's about how precautionary do you need to be. And sometimes try to ask questions that only you would possibly know, and try to always clear your mind, not to push those thoughts to the side, but to allow them to come through, speak it out loud, and then let it go. Because once you say it out loud, I promise you, it's not going to harass you anymore, because it's like, oh, okay, well, you heard me. Well, maybe it's not just something else, but you heard yourself. And then you realize, well, okay, why did I say that? And, it just eventually all fits together, depending on who you are, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go.
Right.
It sounds like you're trying to explain the introduction to trying to tap into divine knowledge, like the spiritual knowledge. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not meaning to, honestly.
It's just part of it.
I mean, a little bit. That's honestly what started my path, and I can't help but continuously lead to that, because I've always been somewhat guided in a way of just energy, that calling of at home feeling. And I know that somebody is going to relate to that, because it's just that heart warmth, zeal feeling, that little child feeling where you cater to it.
Right.
You're constantly wanting to run back to it because it feels good, kind of like an addiction. It's dopamine. I mean, dopamine. Yeah. Magic can be an addiction, a dopamine for you.
That's how we have a lot of crazy ceremonial magic books.
Absolutely.
they went wrong.
Absolutely.
It can happen.
I mean, hell, you hear the crazy parties. I'm ready to go.
Chaos magic came from a lot of people going insane. We got some good nuggets out of it, but
it
was not for free.
Hey, look.
You got a good point.
But for all those insane people, we did get a couple Terrence McKennas and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. But so it's like for those that are kind of first maybe being into ceremonial magic, like I was describing with like the angels, you get to a point where it's either you're scared at first and don't know what's going on, to you're in charge and you're more or less God. You're not actually, but you're evoking God to command. That's why it's like programming something if you're a nerd.
It feels like you are that deity.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. That's why
Hecate's did it, and I was like, whoa, I'm not Hecate. What's going on? You're scaring me, bro.
So when you graduate from that kind of basic Kabbalah into working with more deities and you dive into their practice, you have to invest. We're kind of having this conversation. We don't like it when people are picking and choosing these paths, but it's also true of a practice. Like that's why ceremonial magic is so cool, because it's just a formula that you can then apply, but you have to dive into that system.
I mean, do you think that deities maybe teach ceremonial magic, but in their own way to certain people that fits their comfortability?
Yes, yeah, because that's 100%. For example, when I'm talking about like something like a banishing ritual, for example, that's a formula and a structure for how you lay it out. But as you do that over and over, that's your fundamental. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I'll personify this even further, but
the basics of what you do.
At a base level, what you can then do is say, okay, I know how this works and what this feeling is incorporating. Let me work with this entity that's going to teach me some new things. And because I know how to do that now, and then now maybe it's like, okay, yeah, you've done the LBRP this way, so what you can do is say, instead of doing it with all the archangels, say you want to work with Hecate.
Yeah.
just do that formula
Well,
and do what is corresponding to that.
I wanted to
Or go off of
originally
that.
work with all of the Greek pantheons, and originally I wanted to work with Apollo, and I was rudely declined,
Yeah,
and
Apollo's
then
an
we
asshole.
had beef for 6
Look,
months.
I don't work with them yet, but I know a lot about them. That's
You-
my cousins. They're all
Okay,
witches.
look, Apollo. I'm not saying nothing, but it's out there. I was rudely declined. We had beef for like 6 months. I told everybody about it, and every time he was like, "Oh, you fucking bitch." Yes, sir. Yeah, that's what you get. But she had finally came down with that story we had given you outside, and it's amazing how she came. It's amazing how I got to experience it. I actually introduced my friend to Heke, and she's been taking off wonderfully with her magic. Absolutely, and she works with a different face of her. And I love that because, I not only get to connect with I not only get to connect with my Hebe like that, but I get to connect with Heke in a different face and it has a different form, and we get to come together as 4 people and not just as
Oh, that's cool.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's magical, and it's important to not just me but into my Hebe, because she's never experienced anything like that, and I've never have either. So we're getting to learn these experiences together. We're getting to experience a broadened horizon of what energy can be like and how can we transmute it in between different things. And I think that's the whole point of her coming to me, is to open me up and share her name mostly. And I think that's the reason why Odin has started to try to step in, is I want my name spread too.
Yeah.
And I get it.
I
gotta.
Your name's pretty well spread. Give me a minute. I'll get to you.
Absolutely. It's like, I gotta give my baby some love, because she's honestly, as a solar practitioner, she has done so much helpful guidance. Absolutely. Like through and through. It doesn't matter if I thought I was crazy or if I was just content with everything that is going on. She has always been there for whatever answers that I needed, no matter what time, day, and I love it. Even if I don't have the offerings, if anybody is ever worried about that, she is not as mean as she seems.
Interesting food for thought on all of those. Even if you aren't religious or you don't believe in anything, atheist, agnostic, whatnot, you could always look at gods or deities as being energy.
Yeah, it's
Just
a
energy and
representation of
energy in general. Like if your scientific beliefs, you could look at gods and deities as just energy and the law of conservation of energy. That energy is going somewhere, and it's going everywhere for everyone, for whatever you believe it to be going for.
And that's how I always introduce any kind of magic. It's like, guys, it's just glorified meditation. That's all it really is. Like, yes, you do weird mantras. Yes, you tie things in certain ways and draw weird symbols. But it is glorified meditation. But it's with purpose, and so it has a psychological impact at bare minimum. So you just know and acknowledge the energy, and that's the first thing I always introduce people to it as. But I say, however, while I love that logic and I use that to back and help with correspondence work, I like the spiritual stuff because it's fucking fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And at this point, it just seems so natural to just sit here and talk about everything that we have right now, just on a basic and, straightforward truth on how we see it.
Yeah.
It's, the people who are listening on the podcast get to sit down and see our experiences from yours to mine to his. Shared experiences.
We figured out the point.
But it's just all pretty much energy. That's all it is. Energy cannot be energy cannot be destroyed or created, but only transmuted. And it is important to understand that it can be transmuted into the most important places, but it can be transmuted into the wrong place, and we have to be careful.
So,
always.
What I learned today was that as I grow and work with different kind of deities through my practice, I'm going to experience the same change that I experienced when I was working with angels, because and I'm saying this because as people who are just now getting into something like this, you traverse the tree of life in a sense, or traverse your growth through your chakras. And when you get to that tier, like if I were to try to work with them now, I'm not studied, I'm not practiced, I don't have the information. I could just dive in and I would start to receive it.
That is kind of the greatest part about trying to dive in about it is you get to come in with no knowledge as a fresh mind. Because if you go in already prepared with all the knowledge that you have, are you really sure what you're doing? Like, are you invoking what you're invoking, or is it your mind perceiving what you've already learned throughout?
What you were taught verbatim rather than what you were taught and applying.
Absolutely, because I mean, Odin is not the way that he is perceived at all, like whatsoever. Like, he just came to me as like Earth, and he didn't even have a physical body, and that alone is just it baffled my mind because I expected something and it wasn't the way that it was.
Right.
That's the whole point, or the whole beauty, and just diving into what you're ready, not even ready for, but just what you're ready to dive in on.
A little bit of discomfort comes outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and in a way, you have to.
You can't grow inside
I described
that box.
Like, I know I'm not ready right now, but it's because I have a path in my practice, but that doesn't mean the moment I start doing that, I'm not going to get an immediate response.
I feel like you're an Aries man.
I 100% will get the response I'm looking for, and I will then have to make a choice. So it's good if you're doing the specific thing. Now, if you're just going willy-nilly, do your thing, man. Like, do what comes natural. That's right. That is the correct path.
Hey,
keep doing that.
Take notes and keep going.
If you're following a specific system, then you'll realize once you get to each tier that you'll know when one closes and one ends, because one will guide you to the next. At some point, and this won't literally happen, but at some point, for example, an angel will say, all right, you're done here. You've worked with all 72. You completed the Shem operation. Yeah. Here you go. Time to go into Norse. Good luck.
I think
have to adopt that full system.
That's kind of how I feel with Hecate, honestly. Like, I feel like she's such a universal being, and like everybody keeps talking about how she's just the Greek pantheon, but I honestly see her as like a time weaver. And there's my friend who works with Celtic deities, you know, that's her pantheon as a Celtic pagan. She was talking to me about how Certrice and Celtic, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, and God forbid, but she is a three-faced time weaver, that crone, maiden, and mother, who can weave from the beginning of time to the middle and the end. And that is just like another perception of how I could see Hecate. But I see her as also a gatekeeper and a key holder. I mean, like, it's just all kind of like how perception is, you know. It's how your guidance or your natural soul elemental lies, you know. We are all made from somewhere. The question is just where are we naturally trying to go back to? Where are we naturally born or created from? Or where are we most comfortable at, and where can we get to there? Or how can we get to there?
Yeah, and we were talking kind of earlier, like applying that to just this idea that energy is always transmutable. Like, that means there's an infinite way to go forward. It also means there's an infinite way to go back. So
Absolutely.
Just within what you can perceive in your present lifetime, you're digging you'll go where you're supposed to go, and you can dig back a lot.
The big 8.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, I can't even capitalize on that, because it's a lot. And you just take your time, you know what I mean? Like, that's the biggest part about this, is taking your time, taking what's comfortable for you, and moving on.
Yeah, and we're making a lot of references to things that we're having with our own experiences that get to be more advanced. I wouldn't even call myself an advanced practitioner. 2 years for a magician is not a long time.
I wouldn't consider myself an advanced practitioner.
Not at all.
Not at all.
but that just is to illustrate, like, there's so much
people.
knowledge. Like, Luni is spouting so much knowledge that she accumulated over the years, but that's still just like we're still building. Like, there's so much more to build.
The year. I mean, it's weird.
Even more to the fucking point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and honestly, I haven't picked up much books, because the book reading, it just starts to ache me. You know, I feel like it's more of a job than it is a hobby. I want to enjoy it. And that's the whole point of me. Again, a disclosure, do not do this. as taking hallucinogenics in a ritualistic way, because I get to experience things for myself, my reality, and I get to break down those walls and understand the energy of everything that is not just me, but the world.
I think that's the beauty of us being solo practitioners. We don't really read into things until we've experienced it first. Yeah. Like we just, we try to go through the spiritual notions, and then when something happens, we'll turn around, we'll try to find something talking about that to give us more insight of what actually happened and what was happening. We try to embrace it with open arms and then go back and research and whatnot. Like you were talking about earlier, you didn't want to work on those things because you haven't researched them yet, and you didn't want to, I guess, seem knowledgeable when working on those things. But the way I look at it is I don't really think you need the prior knowledge. If something doesn't want you working with it, it's just going to be like, hey, buddy, fuck you,
and
take
if
it.
they do, then
take
hopefully
it.
it'll reach out and be like, hey, this is how you do it correctly.
Yeah. It's like, hey, look, if you're ready, it should just, push you along the path. But if you're not, it's gonna plainly, blatantly, obviously make hey, you're not ready for this. You need to take it back a couple steps, and it will push you back a couple of steps spiritually.
Yeah, it definitely will, because if you're not ready, that even goes with this reality. Like, it goes before this physical world. If you are not ready for something, do not try to go chasing with your ass up and your head down. Try to figure out what you can while you can and move on. Because if you're going to continue on chasing blindsided, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to learn what you want to learn, or you're not going to achieve what you're going for. It's just common sense, honestly. Can't help but say it.
Know your limits.
Yeah, absolutely. Limitations is everything, and that's with anything. That's with going out to the bar. That's going out with just going hiking. Talking with your friends, knowing when to just say, hey, I gotta go home. Yeah. There's a time for everything.
Mm-hmm. It's like, damn it, Jimmy, you're a lightweight. Why are you trying to drink 20 shots? I'm not trying to carry you home.
We might turn this into a comedy show.
I always try to keep a lighthearted tone, because a lot of the things I talk about are so goddamn dark.
I'm sure they heavy. Enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's like, I live it, and I'm still alive, so let's laugh about it a little bit.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. We're still here and kicking, motherfucker.
Let's fucking
try me.
Like, smile a little bit. Like, yes, be depressed, but also smile.
We can't show you the physical memes, so we're just bringing it to you live.
Fuck it, we're doing it live.
So I want to close this down, but before I do
Absolutely.
that, is there anything else that you guys want to just shout out or talk about real quick, or anything like that?
I'm not quite sure, honestly. I want to give you a big shout out just for,
bringing us here today.
Absolutely. You're a wonderful friend. You're a great asset, not just to the witch community or spiritual community, but to my little inner circle, because you're gaining yourself. You're gaining the confidence that you want. You're helping me grow the confidence that I need, and you're helping me grow as a person. We're getting to do this together.
Yeah.
And not only just us, but the people that are listening to this right now, I get to connect with them on a different level that I've never been able to do with most people. And this is an experience that I get to horizon, and I am so grateful for you. And I am so grateful just to get to talk about all of this. I'm sure this has been like a hectic and chaotic podcast, but I'm sure somebody's gonna love it. And
it's probably the longest episode, which is good, because at worst I'll split it and then I get more content.
Hey, there we go. Absolutely, more content always. We love it. But I hope everybody here is safe mentally, physically, and if they ever need help, reach out. I'm sure you have a Gmail set up.
I do.
There's a comment section set up, notifications, all of it's there. Fucking do it.
Yeah, we're a small podcast, so I'll actually see it.
Do it.
I guess a brief summary of everything we talked about was, love yourself, know your limits, And if there's anyone that likes to put you down in any sort of way, fuck them. You're beautiful. You can make yourself happy no matter what.
Follow your path.
You can make yourself happy no matter what anybody says, and believe in what you believe in, because there is no right or wrong in this world. We all have our own perceptions.
Absolutely. Love yourself. Do what you do. Carry it on your shoulder with
Do a
pride.
fuck ton of drugs. I'm just kidding.
Just
kidding.
That's
Just
a
kidding.
disclaimer. That is a no-go.
I guess we should end that with saying is don't do drugs, kids, and if you do, don't try meth.
All right.
Good night.
Perfect. I like it.